What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we are continuing our God Roll guides for weapons inside of Season of the Deep. Now this right here is the old Sterling Strand Auto Rifle that is in our Kinetic Slot, 600 RPM, just like Duty Bound and Gnawing Hunger. And this is a world drop, so you don't gotta grind red borders, go into raids, anything like that. You can get it from the gunsmith and just from any of those legendary engrams that drop in the world. This thing is very fun and a lot easier to get. I know people complain about not being able to get Rufu's Fury and they're screwed not being able to get a Strand Auto Rifle, but let me tell you, this one very easy to snag just from world drops, and anybody can grab it with some very good rolls in both PvP and PvE. Now, before we get into the god rolls for both of these weapons, PvP, PvE, want to go over the origin trait, which is field tested. Defeating targets or dealing damage with this weapon gradually increases range, stability, handling, and reload speed. Swords gain increased charge rate and guard resistance. So this thing, when we're defeating targets and dealing damage, it becomes even better with range, stability, handling, and reload, which is crazy that it gives us a nice buff to all of those. Now, for me, right here is my PvP God Roll. Having this, being able to stack it out on D2 Arsenal is super nice, so you guys can see all of the stats that we have here with recoil, impact, range, stability. Definitely the most important right there, with 65 on the aim assist and 78 in the recoil direction. Now for me, for this PvP roll, definitely going with stability as my masterwork, as you can see right here. Now for the mod on the weapon, I went with counterbalance just to help with that recoil direction, cranking it up to 78. But you could throw something on there like Icarus Grip or Quick Access Sling for PvP. Now for our mods that we are throwing on it, perk-wise, a small bore, giving it that +7 to stability and range, allowing us to have that nice basically 60 in each for range and stability. Plus, like I said, we are getting field tested to proc inside a Crucible as well, so it gives us a stack to range, stability, handling, and reload. Now for the second column, I'm going with accurized rounds for that +10 in range. Basically all of the Crucible PvP weapons that you see inside of Destiny that are god rolls are going to have basically this or steady rounds in this column. Now for me, I went with surplus actually in this column. Just felt like the best. You could go with slideways if you wanted, but I personally like having this on, so you get increased handling, reload, stability for each of those fully charged abilities. So you can see that reload, handling, stability gets 5, 25, and 50 depending on how many of those you have up with your grenade, melee, as well as your dodge. Now the other option, like I said, is slideways. Sliding partially reloads this weapon and boosts the handling and stability, so gives you a nice 15% refresh on the magazine, plus gives you 20 in stability and handling. So that gives our stability all the way up to 80 and the handling all the way up to about 80 as well if you're using slideways. So this might be the go-to as well. Now for me, in this last column, definitely going with Frenzy. Being in combat for an extended period of time gives increased damage to this weapon. You can see it gives 15% increase in that damage after being in combat for 12 seconds. We also get 50 in handling and 50 in that reload speed. So this thing is super nice with having all of these in the addition to the stability and range and handling that we get from field tested inside a Crucible. So this thing can slap very hard, competing with both of our other Strand Auto Rifles that we have in that slot. Now, when we move on to the PvE version of this, you can see our stats with range, stability, handling all being at about 60 again, with our range being a little bit less, with that reload being at 65, magazine being super high because of the perks that we can have on it. It won't be nearly this high, but it is very close. Now for me, again, I think I'm going with stability on this as our masterwork. You could go with something like range to change up those stats if if you want a little bit because of field tested, but I liked having them as even as I possibly could, as you could see right there. So when field tested does get procced, it evens them out even more and just makes this an all-around jack of all trades for the PvE realm. Now, I went with minor spec. You could go with major spec if you want for those champions, but I just felt like this helps, especially in that GM content, higher end content for some of those red bar enemies. Now, when we move on to our perks, I went with hammer forged rifling, like I said, trying to make range, stability, handling all basically the same because of field tested with this weapon, and it feels very good having all of those at about the 60 in my opinion. So this hammer forge feels nice with that 10 range. Now for me, I am going with this tactical mag. It gives us an increase to magazine, reload, and stability instead of something like extended mag, or if you're using appended mag, that gives you addition to your magazine but doesn't give you the reload or that stability. You can see if you throw on extended like here, it tanks your reload speed all the way down to 35. So that is why I personally love tac mag. Helps a little bit in all of those categories. Now, when we move on to the third column, I personally went with rewind rounds. You could go with surplus again, but I think that rewind rounds is the best in this column. When we empty the magazine, it refills from reserves based on the number of hits, which is 50 to 60% for these primary weapons. So when we are hitting every single shot, let's say in a magazine, we're going to get 50 to 60% of that magazine back instantly as soon as we run out. So it's basically like we're shooting, instead of, let's say, this 85 magazine, we're going to shoot 120 bullets before it even runs out when rewind it gets to proc. Now, in our last column, we have two options. Personally, I like Demolitionist just for the overall ability in the PvE realm to get your grenades back on any subclass. Doesn't have to be Strand or whatever for that synergy. So this definitely makes it a more versatile weapon, especially in that end game. But you can also go with Hatchling if you want to create those threadlings on those defeats, whether they be precision final blows or rapidly defeating those targets. You might have hatchlings that spawn, which pairs better with that strand and having that synergy, especially when you have that extra damage via your fragments. So you could throw this on for that add clear potential and strand synergy. But I think overall, if you're throwing on rewind rounds with a Demolitionist, that is definitely the 5 out of 5 God roll for this weapon. So hopefully y'all can get grinding this out, get a lot of these drops from Banshee, getting those level ups, basically any single legendary that drops in the world, lost sectors, public events, anything like that, legendary engrams, even Zer might sell these in the future. So be on the lookout for these rolls. Very fun Strand Auto Rifle in that Kinetic Slot, like I said. Don't gotta go into raids, don't gotta grind out red borders or anything like that to craft it. Just like Perpetualis or Rufus Fury, you can just get this bad boy to drop. Hopefully get that 5 out of 5 God roll for PvP, PvE, whatever you're taking it into, and just slay out with it. So thank you guys so much again for that support. Everything lately, absolutely killing it. If y'all like the content, hit that subscribe button, join the Discord. We build out all of these often for you guys with weapons as well as builds with exotics, subclasses, etc. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and notice so you don't miss any of that. And I truly appreciate y'all. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.